Welcome to the Daily Devotional. We're so glad you could take some time to tune in and to be with us. Get ready with your little buttons for your hearts and your thumbs up, because what I'm about to say is worthy of it. Our God is an awesome God. I'm amazed at His ability to forgive us. I'm amazed at His power to change a person's life, to free someone from addiction, to heal a broken marriage, to help a prodigal son or daughter come to their senses. I'm always shocked at God's ability to give you and I the strength that we need at the lowest moment of our life. But I got to be honest with you. There are times when I wonder, what in the world is God doing? You know what I mean? We look at the world today and how messed up it is. People are hurting, people are struggling, and we pray and we think, is God listening to me? And if we're honest, we wonder about this. Does God care about my life? Does God see what I'm going through? Does God love somebody like me? If you've ever wondered about any of those things, Psalm 139 is God's answer. So let's take a look at it. It says, "O Lord, you have searched me and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise, you perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all of my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, O Lord. You hem me in, behind and before. You've laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain." We have a God who sees everything that we go through. Nothing about your life or the world that we live in escapes His notice. He knows us inside and out. He even knows the smallest details of our life, like when we sit down or when we stand back up again. He knows about our dreams, our hopes, even our hurts. Whatever you're going through, whatever thoughts run through your mind, whatever words come out of your mouth, God knows them all. Every frustration, every motive, every action, and every deed, God knows all about you. And this blows David away. David was the one who wrote this psalm. He says, "Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain." Now, for some of us, if we're honest, knowing that nothing escapes God's attention, we might have a couple of emotions run through our mind, like maybe confusion. If God knows everything about my life and He cares about my life, then why didn't He do more to help me out along the way? You probably thought, where's God in the midst of all this? He could have stopped this virus, right? On a more personal note, some of you were thinking, He could have saved my marriage. You could have helped me with that promotion. You could have healed my child. You could have done something. Where were you? We ask those questions to God as we process the pain that we're feeling. See, maybe you prayed for someone to get better, but it only got worse. Maybe you've done everything you know to do, but it feels like life has sucker punched you and now it's kicking you while you're down. Philip Yancey wrote a book called Disappointment with God. Yancey interviewed many people who were undergoing difficult trials. He interviewed one man he called Douglas. This man, who had devoted much of his life to urban ministry and helping the poor, had experienced a series of tragedies. First, the man's wife was diagnosed with cancer. Despite extensive medical treatments, her health was going downhill. And as if that wasn't enough suffering for one family, Douglas and his 12-year-old daughter were injured in a head-on collision. Douglas's head injury rendered him prone to chronic double vision and blinding headaches. After the accident, he could no longer read, not even from a large print Bible. When Philip Yancey interviewed Douglas, he asked him, he said, "Now tell me about your disappointment with God." And Douglas looked at Philip and said, "To tell you the truth, I don't feel any disappointment with God." And Yancey was surprised. He says, "Well, don't you feel like God's let you down?" And this is what Douglas said. "I have learned first through my wife's illness, and then especially through the accident, not to confuse God with life. I'm no stoic. I'm as upset about what happened to me as anyone could be. I feel free to curse the unfairness of life and to vent all my grief and anger. But I believe God feels the same way about the accident as I do, grieved and angry. I don't blame Him for what happened. We tend to think life should be fair because God is fair, but God is not life. And if I confuse God with the physical reality of life by expecting constantly good health, for example, then I set myself up for crashing disappointment." Listen, there's going to be things that happen in your life and in my life that aren't going to go the way we want. They're going to confuse us. Your prayer won't always be answered the way that you want them to be answered. Things won't work out the way that you hope that they would work out. When life knocks us down, we have really one of two options. We can choose to question God, or we can choose to trust Him even when it's dark, even when we can't see our hand in front of our face. I recently read in a magazine poll that 87% of people interviewed said that it was a painful event, the death of a loved one, an illness, a breakup, a divorce, that helped them find more positive meaning in life. In the words of Calvin Miller, we discover that the worst and best days of our life could be the same one. At the end of the day, I have to expect that God is God, right? I have to believe that. Now, I'm not God. And His ways are higher than my ways. His thoughts are greater than my thoughts. And He doesn't owe me an explanation for why He does what He does. I do not know. I do know that He's going to work it out for my good and for His glory. If I were to ask the disciples, what was the worst day of your life? I bet you anything they would point to the day that Jesus died on the cross. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? But if I was to ask them what the best day of their life was, they would say that was a no-brainer as well. It was 3 days later when Jesus rose again from the dead. You see, Jesus took the worst this world could throw at us and make something precious and amazing out of it. Our job is to hang on to Him with white-knuckle intensity no matter what. And I hope you'll do that today. I'll see you tomorrow.